Hello, this is cjhoyle, and today is Saturday, February 22nd, 2020, and I'm standing here at the intersection of Woodbine Avenue and O'Conner Drive in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Today I'm riding my Green Machine bicycle, which has an action camera mounted here on the front of it. In this video, I'm going to be giving a tour of Woodbine Avenue here in Toronto's East End. Alright, so from here at O'Conner, I'll begin to make my way in the south direction. I should mention it's fairly windy today, so please forgive the sound of the wind if it's being picked up by the microphone. I know I have some wind socks on there to try and prevent that, but I know some of the wind noise gets through. So O'Conner is sort of the northern terminus of Woodbine Avenue, at least for a long way. Woodbine does eventually pick up again way up at the very north end of Toronto, just at Steeles Avenue, which is actually the northern border of Toronto. But there's a big section of that road missing. And the southern part of Woodbine Avenue has a bike lane in it, of which I'm riding in right now. This bike lane was installed back in the year 2017, near the end of the year, I believe. And we're just about to cross Coastburn Avenue, or Coastburn Avenue. I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce it, but that is an east-west street that has a bike lane on it, or at least for most of its distance. The reason why Woodbine Avenue sort of terminates at that point back there at O'Conner Drive is because beyond there's the Taylor Creek ravine, which is a fairly deep valley, and they didn't build a bridge to cross it. Woodbine was one of the original concessions when this part of the country was originally being surveyed and laid out. In fact, that concession, which is concession number 8, or Regional Road 8, or whatever they call it, it does stretch all the way up to Lake Simcoe up in York region, which is quite a long ways from here. I think close to 100 kilometers. Just bumped into one of those snowbanks that was kind of sticking out there. This area of the city that I'm riding through is part of the former municipality or former borough of East York, which was amalgamated with the city of Toronto in 1998. Here I'm at Mortimer Avenue, and if we were to turn left, that road becomes Lumsden Avenue, and I believe if you go down Lumsden, you're able to meet a branch of that creek that I was mentioning earlier, the Taylor Creek, that flows at the bottom of the Taylor Creek Valley, or Taylor Creek Ravine. And at the bottom of that valley, there's also a multi-use trail, or park trail that you can ride a bike on. And if you get on there, you can ride down that valley, and eventually, just like how the Taylor Creek eventually merges with the Don River, the Taylor Creek Trail merges eventually with the Don Valley Trail, and you're able to ride all the way downtown from there. And with these bike lanes now on Woodbine Avenue, it means you can form a nice loop by going down that way, coming across, going down all the way down to the lake on that Don Valley Trail, then coming across the waterfront until you get to Woodbine, and then riding up Woodbine in the opposite direction that I'm riding right now. Woodbine has a number of different churches on it. We're just going past one on the right now, which is called the Church of the Resurrection, which is it says it's an Anglican church. One thing I really like about this bike lane is that it's nice and wide. That provides sort of many benefits for, you know, making the road safer, but one of them that's most apparent at this time of the year is that you can see that on the far right side of the bike lane there's, you know, snow drifts that are still there, and those snow drifts have melted, but they're still there. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is that if the bike lane was a lot narrower, then the snowdrift would be occupying most of that bike lane, but because it's so wide, there's still lots of bike lane left over. Wide bike lanes are also really good for you know, if you have people riding in them that are riding at different speeds, so you can easily pass the person ahead of you, or they can pass you. So we're just reaching Danforth Avenue, which is sort of the main street that runs through this part of the city. It actually has a subway that runs underneath it, and just sort of behind us we rode past the Woodbine Avenue or Woodbine subway station. So you'd be able to get on a subway there and ride it in the west direction all the way to, you know, downtown Toronto and beyond, all the way out to Etobicoke at Kipling Station. Or if you rode in the other direction, you could ride it all the way to Kennedy Station, which is the terminus of the subway, which is out in Scarborough in the east direction. Danforth Avenue is a road that I made a video riding on 2 weeks ago, and I rode right past this intersection. So if you haven't already seen that video, there's a link in the description below. I'm filming this video at about 2:30 in the afternoon today, and it's quite a warm day for late February. It's, I think, about 4 or 5 degrees Celsius, and quite sunny, like almost no clouds in the sky, a nice blue sky. So it's a really nice day to be out riding a bike. It is kind of windy though, I did mention that, so, but as long as you're dressed for it, it's a great day to be outside. I think tomorrow is supposed to be kind of similar, except even warmer, so looking forward to that as well. Just about to ride underneath a railway underpass. I believe these tracks are for the CN's East line from Toronto. Basically the tracks that the Lakeshore east of the GO Transit's GO train takes. We're just approaching Girard Street East, which is a fairly major arterial road that has a streetcar line that runs along it. Straight ahead, you can kind of see a little bit of a blue sort of a tinge to the sky. That's the lake. That's Lake Ontario that we're riding down towards. That's why we're always sloping that way, is because we're sort of sloping down towards the lake. At the beginning of the video, I did have to climb up a little bit, and I think that's because of the Taylor Creek ravine, which, you know, slopes a little bit north there. But generally speaking, in Toronto, if you're going downhill, you're probably going towards the lake, which generally means you're going in the south direction. So it's always a good sort of trick to try and figure out your direction, although it's not 100% accurate, of course, in all cases. So the bike that I'm riding today is the bike that I call my green machine. It's my bike of choice for the winter months, because I've sort of designated it as the bike that I'm okay with it getting rusty and salty. Where my other ones, I like to keep those kind of pristine. I have 2 other recumbent bikes that I ride. This is a conventional bike. I was riding this bike yesterday, or last night in fact, and I was riding home from where I had been in the evening, and I got a flat tire on my way home, and so I took my bike into my work area last night to fix it, and discovered the flat tire was caused from running over a screw that was in the bottom of it was on my tire that obviously had punctured it. So that was an easy one to diagnose. And while I had it in my area and I was working on it, I decided to do a bunch of other tune-ups to it that were kind of overdue for being done. So my bike is running nicer than it has in a while, which is always nice. On the right, we're just riding past a cemetery and a church. The church is called St. John the Baptist, Norway, which is an Anglican church, another Anglican church. And it dates back to the 1850s, so for Toronto history, that's a fairly old landmark. And of course, the cemetery which is around it is, I'm sure a lot of the gravestones date back to that sort of time too. It's quite a large cemetery for being sort of in the core of Toronto. I believe all of the cemeteries like this are all already full, and when people die here that live in the city, they have to, I think, be buried further away. I know Mount Pleasant Cemetery, which is sort of in Midtown, I know it still has capacity left. It's a giant cemetery, but not really in the downtown core. So we're just at Kingston Road now. Not a road that I've made a video about yet, but I'm sure I will at some point in the future. So this winter I've been trying to film more of these narrated cycling videos. I'm trying to cover as many Toronto streets as possible, so if there's one that you'd like to see, I'd love to hear your suggestions in the comment section below. So why is this road called Woodbine? Well, that's an interesting question. When this road was first built, at the foot of it, there was a race course for horses that was called the Woodbine Racecourse. So they named the road after that race course. Now that race course was built, back in the 1800s, sort of the second half of the 1800s, and it stayed there for a long time, but eventually another Woodbine racecourse was built, which is actually out in Etobicoke, kind of out near the airport. So when you think of Woodbine, you kind of think of that area too, as well as this area, even though they're nowhere near each other, and that's because I guess the same company that owned, this old racecourse built their new one and took their name with them. The old one stayed here for another couple decades, but it changed names. It was called the Greenwood Racecourse, and I think it had some other names along the way as well. And that racecourse actually used to exist just across from this intersection, sort of on the right from there. So that whole big plot of land where that building is, that was part of the land which was once occupied by that original Woodbine Racecourse for horses. So we're just crossing Queen Street East, which is another major east-west road that has streetcars that run along it. And after we get across there, the Woodbine bike lane ends. In fact, it actually ended a block or so before there, and now we've just got a regular road. Kind of unfortunate that the Woodbine bike lane doesn't go all the way down to the waterfront, because that is ultimately where a lot of the people, riding down this way are wanting to get to, but you can turn right onto Dundas Street, somewhere back there, which eventually links up to it. So yeah, this whole plot of land to my right, extending beyond those houses to Woodbine Park, that was all part of that original race course. Now straight ahead, that unusual looking concrete structure, that's the Donald D. Somerville Olympic Pools, which is kind of pretty unique sort of a structure. It's a big Olympic sized pool. In fact, there's multiple pools up there, but one of them is a big 50-meter long pool that has never hosted any Olympics, but it is Olympic sized. And so it's like kind of built on the upper story of that structure, and the bottom structure is for the change rooms and stuff. So it's an outdoor pool, and it's right beside the lake too. which is interesting. I'm actually going to turn to this at this traffic light here, and I'll show you the beach, and that's where I'll end the video. But this is Woodbine Beach that we're just about to go past, which is a nice area of the city to come to. Just going to press this button so the traffic light will change in my favor. So there, straight ahead, you can see the beach and the water from the Woodbine Beach, and lots of people out enjoying the sunny day. They have some art installations there right now. I believe they call those the winter stations that they put here at Woodbine Beach. So there's my green light, and I better get off my bike and walk across, because it is technically a crosswalk. It's not a place for bikes, but so yeah, straight ahead you can see all the big, large area of sand that Woodbine Beach has, and these asphalt trails that we're just crossing. That's the Waterfront Trail, or the Martin Goodman Trail, which if you turn right, you could ride it all the way to downtown Toronto, or even keep going and get, all the way out to Etobicoke. Or if you go left, it only goes for another kilometer or so before it dead ends. And then the Woodbine Beach also includes this wooden boardwalk, which you can't ride a bike on, or you're not supposed to ride a bike on, but it's definitely a nice place for coming to walk. So anyway, that concludes my tour of Woodbine Avenue here in Toronto's East End. If you watched all the way to the end of the video, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below, and thanks for watching.